everybody. Welcome back to The Drop. I am Karina, and this is my awesome dad, John Arana.
Hey, here we are.
We're here at The Drop, dropping truth and bringing life.
That's right.
What we love to do here week after week for all of you guys who listen and watch, and hope that you guys are just encouraged. And we invite you guys to share the episode with a friend after you listen to it, because it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, this is gonna be good.
Yeah, what are we chatting about today?
Oh man, does God punish his kids?
God punishes kids. That's a great question.
If you're, if you're a child of God, you're a believer. Obviously, if you're in relationship with God, will He punish you when you mess up?
That's a good question.
And there's a lot of opinions out there.
Oh yeah, I've heard many interesting explanations. And when I was looking at this whole concept of punishment versus discipline versus instruction, of course, as a parent, you kind of think about your own methods of how you process with your kids, And I'll be totally honest. Sometimes I do respond in a way of wanting to punish my child.
Oh yeah.
Because you're just so frustrated, and you're like, I want them to feel so much pain right now.
Penalty.
Like, not physical pain, but like I want them to feel it, so that they never ever ever do this ever again, which is also a totally unrealistic expectation.
Oh yeah, of course.
They are literally learning how to be a person.
Right, that's right.
But it made me think of this recent episode. So Leo, he just started school, kindergarten, so he is loving it. He's having a blast.
He's in his element.
He is like a natural little student. He'll come home and he'll practice his homework. He'll do extra work just because he's enjoying it.
That's great.
Which is so cute. So one day, I think it was like his second week of school, he came home and he was playing with something. So he brought me this like really cool little like set of magnets that he made like this cool shape out of. He was like, Mom, look what I made. And I was like, that's really cool, bud. But I was like, I didn't buy him those magnets. And so I was like, where'd you get those? And he was like, he kind of looked at me. And I was like, did you get those from school? And he was like, he looked at me. I was like,
where else was he today?
Yeah, I was like, buddy, it's okay. You're not in trouble. I just want to know, like, how did you end up with these, And he was like, well, we were using them in class. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, did your teacher, like, send them home with you to practice or play with them? And he was like,
no.
He looked down and he shook his head. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
And I was like, so did you take them? And he was like, yes.
Yes.
And he like
looking down.
I feel like as I asked questions, he began to process like I did something I shouldn't have done. And so I was like, you're not in trouble, buddy. I think that like what I would like you to learn is that these are not yours, right? He was like, no. And I was like, did your teacher say you could take them home? He said, no. So I said, so what did you do? And he was like, I stole them. And I was like, yes, that's what you did, because we took something that doesn't belong to us, And so like in the moment, I almost thought like, man, he needs like a penalty, like he needs a penalty here. I don't want my kids stealing, But then I thought, you know what? I feel like right now in this moment, it's important that I help him correct what he did.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I'm processing through, and I'm like, what do you think we should do about this? And he was like, I need to put them back. And I was like, yes, you need to return them. And so I asked him, I said, why did you take them? And he was like, I just really, really, really liked them. I was like, okay, well, we can't take something that's not ours. Do you understand that? Yes, I understand. So we wrote a note to the teacher.
Funny,
I said, you need to apologize and return it. And I was like, you're not in trouble. It's not like this catastrophic big deal, but we just need to make it right, is what I told him. And so we wrote a little note. He signed his name. I said, when you get to school, just give them to your teacher in the bag with the note and just say, here, Miss Harvey. And of course, I sent the teacher a note. And but, you know, it's like, I feel like that is more closer to how God operates with us.
I totally agree.
You know, correction, teaching, because out of love, you know, not out of like bringing this hammer down.
Yeah, because when you bring the hammer down, all you do is you crush the person.
Yeah, yes.
Instead of building them up, you just crush them, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, you know, as a parent, you know, you wish you could get that right all the time.
Oh, yeah. And you don't.
And sometimes you fly off the handle, you know, and you say something you shouldn't say, and you're going like, oh my gosh, my kid's going to need therapy.
You have to say, let me backpedal here. I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Mommy makes mistakes too.
But I think it's a good point, because I think really that's kind of how God works.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people are so fearful of God.
Yeah.
You know, they're so afraid. Yeah. And really even people in church that have been in church forever, you know, they're like, man, if I misstep, I mean, I'm going to get something that I don't like from God.
Bad stuff's going to come my way.
Something bad's going to happen to me, you know? And it's so sad to be able to live that way, because how can you love a God like that?
Right, yeah.
You know, how can you feel comfortable with a God like that? And, you know, a lot of people confuse what you're talking about, discipline versus punishment.
Yeah, right.
You know, and even the Bible says God will rebuke you. You know, it says right here, I got in Proverbs 3:11 and 12, it says, my son, do not despise the Lord's discipline and do not resent his rebuke.
Right.
Because the Lord disciplines those he loves, as a father, the son he delights in.
Right, yeah.
So he's talking about, you know, a good, healthy relationship here.
Yes.
And, you know, so discipline is instructing people how to do something.
Right.
You know, okay, you do this first, and you pick up the ball this way,
Show
and you
them
throw
how
it
to do it.
But a rebuke is simply saying, listen, this is not right. You know, this is not the right way of doing things. So a rebuke is pointing out that you're doing it wrong, but I'm going to show you how to do it right.
Right. And it's like you need both of those things.
You need both.
You know, and I think this whole concept of punishment and discipline is even hard for us to like get sometimes, because I think we put a lot of our experience with God under what we've experienced here on earth, like with our parents or with a boss, or, you know, in a certain situation. And so we think it's going to be the same with God, you know. But I think like the rebuke, it's not really, I feel like that word sounds so bad. Like it sounds like a dirty word, but it's really not that bad of a word.
No.
You know, it's exactly like you said. It's like, it's kind of getting that like ding, like with Leo. I was like, this wasn't right.
This wasn't right.
You know,
exactly.
You're not a bad kid. You're not in trouble. But I want it to be.
But the discipline goes with the rebuke.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, the instruction.
Now, how do we fix this?
How do we do it right?
What should we have done last time? And I told him that. I said, what should you have done if you wanted those? And he knew. He said, I should have asked. And I said, yes. And I said, if she says no, then that's the end of it. But maybe she would have said yes. You don't know. But, you know, but you have to have that clarity of like that rebuke first of like, this was not the right thing.
I love the end of that verse, because it gives me a different perspective of this father. And it says, as a father, the son he delights in.
That is
you
really
know,
cool.
And I think that if you have a good relationship with your kid, if you delight in them, you know, instead of them always being a pain in the neck, you know, instead of them being an inconvenience, you know.
That's really good.
I mean, I've heard parents tell their kids, or at least I've heard their kids tell me that their parents said, my life would be great if I didn't have you. Imagine that.
That's so wrong.
So, so here's a father that delights in his kids.
Yeah.
So his father is saying,
there's
joy
there.
Man, I
there's
love
enjoyment.
you, man. I love you, kid. Let's talk about this.
Right.
Let's kind of work through this, and let me show you, what you did right, what you did wrong, and let's kind of make a way for you. And so I love that because it gives you. When you delight in your kids, of course, nobody delights 100%.
Of course, there's times where you.
There's been times where I've said, "Can I send them back?"
Not delighting so much.
Can I send them back?
You're not delightful today.
Yeah.
But I still love you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I
I think that we begin to see that God does not punish his kids.
No, definitely.
We begin to see that God does not impose a penalty for when his kids commit a fault.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
And I think that is a myth that has to be broken. Because a lot of people think, man, if I screw up, God's going to punish me. Something bad's going to happen to me. And it's hard to break through that and have a good relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because you're always thinking like, man, he doesn't like me.
Right, yeah. So what would you say, this just popped into my head, because I think like as I'm listening to you, it popped into my head. So I think maybe as our listeners are listening to us, it might pop in their head.
Sure.
What would you say is the clear difference between like a penalty versus consequences? Because I do feel like sometimes when you do something wrong, there can be bad things that happen because of that action.
Sure.
And so like I think sometimes it's hard to decipher, is this God doing this to me, or and I think a lot of people think that versus is this just a result of my bad choice and now I'm living in a very uncomfortable place or situation because of that. And am I identifying that and labeling that as, oh, God is punishing me, versus am I really the one who am I punishing myself? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think you in a way answered the question, because I think that a penalty, if something that is brought to you to make you feel like you did something wrong, and
is it more like inflicting pain?
We're not going to talk about this. You're just going to go sit over there in a corner and be quiet. Okay, so it's a reaction, it's a response as a result of a behavior that is undesirable. But it leads to pain and discomfort, and it also leads to you feeling bad about yourself. Okay, that's the bottom line. I think correction is pointing out what's not working, what you're doing wrong.
That's good.
But with the added benefit of let's work through this, because I'm going to show you how you can do this the right way. So I think it's an affirming, versus a putting down, and I think that we as human beings have the power to choose our actions.
Right.
And most of the times when we choose our action, we also choose our consequences.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I mean, I can go deep into this, but basically God created systems in the world. And there's, in fact, God said, I created blessings and I created curses. Now you choose.
You choose.
You choose how you want to live. The two trees in the garden.
Of course,
So anyhow, so God has created these systems, and so now if I participate of the wrong system, God didn't do it to me.
Right.
I did it to myself.
Yeah.
My actions involve the consequences, good or bad.
Right. Yes.
So I can't say, well, look, God's punishing me.
Right.
No,
Okay,
bro.
yeah,
You
yeah.
chose
No.
that action, so you also chose
So there's
the
like
consequences.
this result, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me think of one of our kids, Grace, who, if you know her, you know, and you're already laughing because you know.
She's
you know
amazing. She's amazing.
She is incredible.
Yeah.
She's too smart for her age.
She's going to change the
always
world.
like steps ahead, you know. But so like my husband and I, we have to be very, very clear with her on, like you're saying, basically setting up these two systems for her. Like, girl, choose good, choose curse. You know, like you choose. You know, if you do this,
it's a good.
This is what will happen.
It's a
you
good
know?
way of dealing with her.
And she has this thing where she always wants to get out of bed after we put her to bed. She's always been like that, and we've tried so many things to get her to. We're really big on that. Once we put you to bed, you don't come out for water. You don't come out for nothing.
I remember when she was even smaller.
Oh,
you know, younger. Oh my gosh.
She would go to extremes. So extreme.
I have a bug in my room.
Yeah,
I have a bug in my.
So extreme that one time she wet her pants right next to the toilet, and then came. And we were like, "You're standing next to the toilet.
No way.
Like you're literally right next to the toilet." But we had to come and help her change.
She goes all the way.
She was so oh my gosh, so extreme.
She was committed.
So the last thing, Sergio's really good at dealing with her. He told her, "Look, we're done with this.
Yeah.
You're not coming out of your room anymore. Whatever you need, you are big enough now to make sure you have it. Water, Aquaphor for all the cuts, Band-Aids, calamine lotion." I mean, she will think of so many things. That as a parent, you think, I should put Aquaphor on her cut, you know, or I should tend to her bug bites. So here's your consequence. If you get out, you lose this is how extreme we've had to be. You lose 30 days of screen.
Ow!
30 days. And he went over it with her. Do you understand?
Screen time.
Do you understand?
Valuable.
Do you know how long 30 days is? To make the story short, she has to test it. So she tested it.
Way.
She got out of her bed. And it was for something. Something. I don't even remember.
Get out.
And I was like, Grace, why? I feel so bad for her, you know? I'm like, why did you do that?
Yeah, but she has to learn by consequences.
But exactly. And so, like, you know, and it's like this thing we're trying to teach her to understand that there are boundaries in life.
Sure.
And you can't just override them all the time.
And she can't say, you did this to me.
Right. Yeah, and we're telling her.
Yeah.
Now she's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to... We're like, you know, honey, this is part of living out your consequence.
So
you chose this. And then, of course, Serge is like, well, maybe you'll think about it next time you want to come out of your room, you know? And so it's like, I think it's one of those things that we have to learn too, because it says that the Lord disciplines those he loves.
Right.
You know, and we love her, and we know how she is.
Sure.
She thinks all these boundaries in life are for me to test and see what applies and what doesn't apply. You know, and so we're like, girl, you know, life has rules. Life has boundaries.
That's right.
You have to learn to accept that, you know? And so then if we push that or we go over that, it's almost like the Lord is like, okay, now you have to kind of walk out and you have to figure out how to adjust to
you have to live with the consequences.
These things, but it doesn't change my love for you.
Exactly.
I'm not the one punishing you.
That's right.
This is a part of the discipline.
And that's what I want people to get here today.
Yeah, and I love that the discipline, it's the same root as disciple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's taking people through the process of, okay, let's work at this again. Okay, let's pick it up again.
What can you learn from this?
Again. You learn
repetition. How can you grow from this?
And it's about repetition.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that the world, even the earthly system, you know, has consequences, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You run through a red light, and no matter how much you pray, that police is gonna come and stop you and give you a ticket, you know. You go shoot somebody, it doesn't matter, you know, how sorry you are.
Right.
You know, you're gonna go to jail.
Consequences.
And so there are consequences, whether positive and negative.
Right.
But here's the thing, I think sometimes, not always, but I think sometimes people don't want to accept responsibility, and so they want to pin it on God.
Ooh,
or they want to pin it on
if that's
somebody
not like
else.
a big drop, I don't know what is. Like if we had a big splash effect right
Boom.
here, I would do it because that is so true.
Yeah.
And I just, man, you nailed it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to accept responsibility when you make your choice.
Yeah.
And instead of saying like, oh, well, it's because of this, or it's because of that, or, you know, God's punishing me, or this person that, you know, it's like, and I think it takes growth and maturity to say, I put myself here.
That's it.
What am I going to do to make sure that I am not here again?
Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the examples that I have on that is Adam and Eve in the garden. You know the story where Adam and Eve messed up, and a lot of people think that Adam and Eve lost the garden because they sinned. They disobeyed God. No, they didn't lose it because of that. Because if Adam and Eve would have repented, God would have forgiven them, and if God forgave them, God would have restored them, because that's how God works.
That's so good.
But the problem was that neither one, Adam or Eve, wanted to accept responsibility.
That's true.
So when God came, said, Adam, what happened? He said, well, the wife
woman,
you gave me.
The woman you gave me.
So he blamed God and blamed the woman. Hey, you gave me this woman, man. You know, you should have checked her out before you brought her into this equation.
It's your fault, God.
So it's your fault or the woman's fault, you know. And then
funny.
God came to Eve and she blamed the serpent. So, you know,
that's such a good point.
When we don't want to accept responsibility, then we want to blame God. So then we want to say, God's punishing me. You know, no, God's not going to punish you, man. You know, but on the other hand, you know, we all have to, you know, deal with the consequences of our choices.
No, totally.
But God is a good God.
Right.
He will discipline you,
Right.
which has to do with training.
Right. Showing you the way, showing you how to do it. And, you know, and I love the heart of God there in that scripture that you read, because it's like when discipline is driven by love, there's almost always a different result than when it's driven out of anger or frustration or punishment.
That's right.
You know, because the goal is to help that person grow along their mistake or whatever, you know.
The goal is to basically say, come on, you could do this.
You can do this.
I know you could do this.
And
let's work at this again.
Exactly.
You know, let's improve here,
that's
let's
his heart
improve
for
there.
us.
And that's the heart of God.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
So anyhow, I hope that this has been helpful for you today. God doesn't punish his kids, but he will instruct and correct and bring you to a higher level to be able to bless your life.
Yeah, that's right. And just remember that the heart of God for you, for us, is love, is driven by love.
That's
and
right.
So if you're starting to feel like a consequence because of something you made, don't be like, oh, God's punishing me, because that's not his heart for you.
No, that's not it.
But stop, take a step back and say, okay, God, I know you love me.
Yeah.
What can I learn from this? Help me grow from this. Yeah. And let's like do this together, because that's the heart of God.
And check your choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Because your choice might have brought you there.
Don't get out of your bed and lose 30 days of screens.
Anyhow, thank you for being at the drop here with us, dropping truth and bringing life. Subscribe.
Yes.
Press the like button. What else can they do to help us out?
Yeah, you're doing good. Like and subscribe.
Share the word. Share the word.
Bell, spread the word. I think this is an awesome episode to share, especially with, like, even for me, like, I'm thinking about, like, how I go about disciplining my kids.
Oh, man.
You know, like, this is a great
concept.
I think, twofold concept of, like, how God loves us through discipline, but also how we can maybe adjust a little bit of how we discipline our children.
Oh, man, this is huge.
You know, because it really is shedding some light on, like, oh, okay, let me make sure I'm including this love aspect, this correction aspect. So anyways, like you said, thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next week.
At the drop.